Alright guys, welcome to a tier list for Age of Empires 4 maps. Now this may be a little bit more contentious, a little bit more controversial, as I suspect some of the opinions that I may hold about which maps are the best, bar none, in Age of Empires 4. Well, there may be some different opinions out there. For instance, Dry Arabia is the Lost Temple, essentially, for you Blizz RTS players. The Lost Temple of Age of Empires, as this one pretty much gets used all the time in Age of Empires 2, as far as I understand, exclusively on the tournament scene. Maybe with a small set of variations in randomization, but I don't think it's a tier S map. So, first of all, which one do I think is the best map in the game, leading to the best gameplay, giving every civilization a fighting chance, not going for the ultimate turtle games where people are too easily able to defend, nor necessarily being separated entirely by water? I'm gonna say I think it's Lipany. For me, Lipany is tier S. There's a pleasing amount of wood and mountain ranges that doesn't split the map in half. There's some elevation, there's some terrain, there's some hidden places, but not as much as on high view. There is no water. It's not as separated as French Pass. Don't get me wrong, I love a bit of separated land. I love big mountain canyons that separate us and lead to a long drawn out game of economic management and delayed attacks. Well, I know that's not for everyone, but I think Lipany is among the best. If I had to mention one more that would make tier S, I'd say Altai. Altai does have more mountain range terrain that separates the map, but you are placed in the south and the north of this location, which means there is a direct path to your opponent. Feudal aggression is possible. There are 3 sacred sites spread out like this, leading to some sacred site plays as well. It's relatively symmetrical, therefore fair. Usually there's a mountain range cut in on the side. Then you've got this whole side path that goes behind the bases and around the map. And I think it's interesting, and I think these 2 maps are really nice. They are my best. I've seen there's a lot of love for Dry Arabia. Some of the tournaments that have been played so far have had rules such as everyone starts on Dry Arabia. And I think that has led to some issues where civilizations that need a little bit of defense, a little bit of defensive terrain in order to be equal to some of the other civs are at a disadvantage. Now, Genesis, of course, was a week after release, the Genesis tournament, which meant that generally simple to play civilizations, simple aggression would be more popular. It was easier to play, it was easier to action. So we saw effectiveness in Mongols, in French, in English, as pretty short rush distance, no natural terrain to defend you from such rushes, and no easy ability to wall off if you are a more defensive civilization such as Delhi, Chinese, or Holy Roman Empire. There was just too much terrain to wall, and therefore Dry Arabia doesn't go there for me. Now, let's talk about tier D maps. I've done tier S, let's go tier D, and then we kind of fill in the middle. Maps that pretty much most people just tend to avoid instantly is Archipelago, it's Warring Islands, these 2 in particular. And yeah, I think those probably are the only ones that deserve to be on tier D. They're the only full water maps. And again, I enjoy the challenge of playing on water, and it's better now that the French Hulk has less armor than before. Before it was play French or die on that map. Since then, we have learned that Rus is also very powerful on water maps, and they are pretty much the new Grinch that ruined Christmas. In the current meta, you play Rus or die on those maps for the most part. There are some other possibilities as well. Holy Roman Empire is fairly strong, but I think overall the map balance is just most out of whack. I'm not like some that think that water maps with any water or a lot of water should just be completely removed, but I've seen enough anti-sentiments against water from enough people in general, people that dodge the map, now that that is still possible without penalty of a loss, that I think it would be fair to put this on tier D. Okay, which ones are tier C? Not as bad as D, even though again I enjoy them, but not exactly above average either. Well, let me think about that. I think Confluence is an interesting map, but it's really big. It's slow because there's very few points of entry towards the opponent, and there's still the quasi imbalance of water. And what's more, with the current iteration of demolition ships, even trying to avoid water, which is not valid because water offers too much food production, too much food gather rates, even trying to ignore water or maybe slowly losing water, you still can't necessarily counterattack over the water because the opponent will have warships stationed at every intersection of the water. There is no land route to the opponent, and I feel like in a way it would be even better if maybe you could like walk around the map and there was no water there. Maybe like kind of like the Nuber River, which we have here. Like here you can go around, right? Avoid the water, even though that's a really long route and your opponent can attack you straight ahead through this little walkway. But despite that, yeah, with the absence of that, I think Confluence is really punishing to those that can't claim the water, and it just leads to really slow games. Again, I like them. I know some people don't, so I think it has to be right here. Boulder Bay feels very similar. There's very little space to maneuver around the water, so it's almost like a full water map, just like Confluence and these two. I think it can be tier C at best. Ancient Spires, I'm gonna put it on C, even though I feel like there's so many different playstyles possible there. Just the sheer imbalance of the spawns sometimes, where one has like a little pool with 3 shallow fish and the other has like an ocean with 3 deep water fish and 12 shallow fish. It feels like it is the balance here that is most at fault. While I do think it leads to interesting dynamic games, and especially with a little bit of improved balance, sometimes I think this can be a solid B or even an A map, unless you're like politically against water maps or something. But I think for now it can be at best a C level map. Mongolian Heights, probably best for Mongols in general. Mongols get best countered by Delhi. Funnily enough, Delhi, the tier 8 civilization, actually has had quite a lot of success recently on semi-water maps, hybrid water maps, because their fishing boats fight back. Can you play this map as an English into a Mongol? Can you play it as a, let's say, a Holy Roman against Mongol or against Delhi? I think it's going to be really imbalanced potentially as well. There's loads of sheep on this map, but again, ignoring water controlling the path. I don't think this is as bad of an offender as Confluence. So very potentially Mongolian Heights is actually a B tier map, one of the more okay water maps. If it isn't tier B, it's the best of tier C, I would say. Maybe this would be the order. It's either the bottom of B or the top of C. And I'll just put it right here. Now, Nagari. I had a Nagari map spawn yesterday that... imagine I'm here, yeah? My opponent is here. 1, this was fully walled off. I could not access this area. 2, we could go via here. So I had this puddle. He had access to the big puddle from his side. My side was walled off and I couldn't flank on the other side of the map. It was extremely imbalanced, and it just shows kind of a random map spawn issue. Like, I literally could not reach the middle water. Normally the concept of this map is you can both reach middle water from the other side in the most optimal walking distance, and you both have access to one proxy lake. In this case, the big water was entirely for him, way too far from me, close to him, and the other side was inaccessible. So it's going to be tier C as well. And you may see a bit of a trend here with water or not. And I wish I could put one water map in tier A where I say it's really perfect here. The water adds a fun element that doesn't dominate in that sense. And for that reasoning, I'll actually put Black Forest on tier B. Maybe a bit controversial, not everyone likes it. I've noticed much fewer dodges on this map though. It's definitely a different acquired taste, because people tend to boom here, but the boom is so fast because of your own backwater, and very importantly, your warships that you make here do not really affect the game. You never contest the same water, you don't worship each other. Worship? You don't send warships at each other to control major walkways, so it's pretty much just a new source of food. It's kind of like an accelerated economy game plan in that sense, to the point that yeah, it's not as big of an issue. It just leads to different types of games, and I find it interesting. Can you reach Imperial fast? How fast? What are you gonna use? How are you gonna attack your opponent? And while it is a bit turtly, again, I do enjoy that. I think Black Forest is more okay than most of the others. Now let's talk about some of the other land maps. Hill and Dale is a turtle map, so is French Pass. Between the two of them, I will say that Hill and Dale is probably a little bit better, just because there's more maneuvering space in the center. So you go out of the turtle and then you contest on the center. So I'll say Hill and Dale is definitely better than French Pass. Though I do enjoy, French Pass, yes. Though I do enjoy French Pass and Mountain Pass for that matter. All of these can be turtle maps. Hill and Dale, Mountain Pass, French Pass. I think Hill and Dale does it best, the turtling, because you're forced into the very rich resources in the center, which is a large, wide open space. And on Mountain Pass is better than French Pass, because while there is a chasm separating you that can lead to a stalemate game where you're both on one side, the middle sometimes has multiple openings that allow for some maneuvering that is impossible on French Pass, since the mountains are impossible for walking. You can only go on the side. And the large walking distance from one side to the other means you're usually just fighting on one side and not as much on the other. A lot of stonewalling. So like that. Then we've got Danube River. It's one of the newest water maps. I think it has the same demolition ship problem, but I think it's better than all the other water maps. So I'm going to put it at the bottom of tier B. I also don't know it as much yet. I haven't played it as much. I don't think it's particularly balanced, but as a necessary evil kind of thing where we have a bunch of water maps, I think this one does it better than most. The best combat water map in my opinion. Highview is an interesting map with a twist. There's very little vision. It kind of plays out like Dry Arabia, but there's a lot less vision. And I think that's just an interesting twist. Only scouts see further into the stealth forest and not even that far. Units see almost nothing. It makes, although the map is as small as some others, it makes it feel bigger because you're not moving forward as confidently. And yeah, I think it deserves a good tier A for its uniqueness. King of the Hill, I see some people don't have much love for it. The wood is very far away from you, which leads to wood scarcity very early on in the game. And there's one sacred site with loads of resources in the center. The map is subject to some resource distribution imbalance, but despite that, I find it interesting and unique enough to fight for the center, fight for the sacred site. It was really fun when Delhi was still playable on this map with Sanctity Rush and Dark Ages. That was always interesting. Didn't offer as much gold to Delhi, but you could try to clinch a win condition with lots of walls. It worked at my back then average elo anyway. And then finally, Dry Arabia, one of the most popular map for Age of Empires 2 players. Where do we place it? It still deserves it to be in tier A, and perhaps it's better than Highview, perhaps not. I'm gonna put it right here. I've included one turtle map in tier A, Hill and Dale, 2 classical maps. Here's a classical, this is classical, and this is a bit sub-classical, but all of these I think are some of the most average and potentially balanced maps. This is my tier list. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below what's your favorite map and where I went horribly wrong in ranking them. And you guys still on Twitch chat, let me know.